All right, I think that we are up and running here. This is my first time using Google Hangout to do a webinar like this, so hopefully you guys can all hear me. There's a chat box available. There's also a question and answer section. If you have any questions while we're going along, feel free to go ahead and type those in the questions section, and I will answer those all at the end instead of as we go. I think it'll be a little easier to just kind of go back and touch base on those things if something wasn't quite clear. I'm going to open a new tab here and check on the Google Hangouts page. Like I said, this is my first time doing it, so it's as much a learning experience for you as it is a learning experience for me. Awesome. So yeah, go ahead. If you have any questions, feel free to go to the Q&A. There's a little box that you can click that lets you open that. And I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to kind of get in here before we get started. Just give you guys a little bit of background information, kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking specifically about how to style your Instagram, how to make it convey the visual message of your brand. So there's a lot of things you can do on Instagram. The bottom line here is there's no right or wrong way, as long as what you're doing is intentional. As long as you know who your brand is and you know who your target market is, as long as you're going after ways that will connect with those people, then if you want to do something completely opposite of what I'm suggesting, go ahead and go for it. I just want to make sure that you're thinking about it and considering it and keeping kind of in the back of your mind all of these different questions and ideas that I'm going to go through that I talk with my clients about, so that you have an idea what may be working, what might not be working, or what's a good direction to go. So we're going to be discussing kind of how Instagram is laid out and how you can use that to your advantage. Some things you're not going to want to do, as well as some things you're going to want to make sure that you're doing. And then we're also going to be discussing some of the tools and applications that I use very briefly. I'm not going to go into complete tutorials on them, but I will be introducing you to them. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll give everybody just a couple more seconds here to jump in and see if we're having like any technical difficulties or anything. I think you all can see my slides and I think you all can hear me, so I think we're all set there. Like I said, there's a chat box. There's also a place where you can ask questions, so feel free to go ahead and do that to jump in to the questions. There's a place available where I can show you, or I can send you some links so you kind of know what we're talking about if that becomes necessary. So I am going to grab a quick drink of water and I will be right back with you. All right, guys. It's about 5 after 3 now, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to make sure that I respect your time and not make this any longer. I'll give you guys a quick introduction, but we're going to be talking about my Instagram account specifically as one of the examples. So I don't want to go over anything about myself twice out of respect for your time. So I'm Allison Mayer. I run a business called instacurator.com, and what it is I am available for consultation, or I'm available to actually take over your Instagram and do all of the hard work for you. Back in April of last year, I had 84 followers on my business Instagram account, and I grew that to over 10,000 followers in 6 months, and that's about where I'm sitting now. By trade, I'm a humanitarian photojournalist, but I just set out to last year make Instagram the social media platform I knew everything about for my own personal business. And it grew and expanded way beyond what I ever thought. And people started asking me for tips and tricks. So that's kind of how Instacurator was born, just out of people's general curiosity, because Instagram is very different from all of your other social media platforms. I like to say that if you were to go and listen to somebody speak, there's somebody standing up on the stage giving a presentation, and you're sitting down in the audience kind of consuming their presentation. That's a lot what Facebook and Twitter are like. Somebody's promoting content out to a large mass of people, and those people are choosing to do with it what they like. Instagram, on the other hand, is like going to a networking event. If you were to walk into a room full of people at a networking event, it's your responsibility to go up to every single person in that room that you want to meet and introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm Allison Mayer, I'm a humanitarian photojournalist, which is what I do by trade. Or I'm Susie and I'm a doctor. Or I'm Erin and I'm a wellness coach. Or I'm Tracy and I help people with health and fitness. Whatever it may be, it's your responsibility to shake hands, press the flesh, so to speak, and meet as many people as possible on Instagram. There isn't a very intuitive way for those people to find you without specifically seeking you out. Like there might be on Facebook with the use of ads, although we're starting to see that in Instagram, or on Twitter with the more widespread use of hashtags for following conversation that aren't used the same way as hashtags are used on Instagram. So that's kind of how I got started being an Instagram expert, so to speak. Instagram is one of the fastest growing social media networks. It's also a very fast moving social media network. So you can't put content up on Instagram and expect it to be valid a couple of weeks later. There's no algorithm like there is on Facebook that brings old posts back to the top or gives them new life, so to speak. So you do really have to be consistent on Instagram. And that's one of the great things about it is you kind of are always getting the current best information from the people you follow, because it has to be posted daily or twice a day, whatever your posting schedule might be, where it doesn't necessarily have to be that way on Facebook. Facebook allows a lot of kind of evergreen content that doesn't really play well on Instagram. As I've niched down on my personal on my business Instagram account, not on my personal Instagram account, but on my personal business Instagram account, I've really seen my engagement rates grow. And that's when I started looking less at how do I grow my Instagram account, but how do I get more of the people who are already following me involved in what I'm doing on Instagram already. And so I started studying, kind of bringing some of my graphic design skills in, but also some of my storytelling skills, looking at the accounts that were very successful with engagement versus accounts that were less successful with engagement. And that's where I kind of came up with these rules for what visually works on Instagram versus what doesn't visually work on Instagram. So like I said, that's kind of a general introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. I'm just going to go ahead and move on to our next slide here. If I can get on the right window. There we go. So I think the first thing you need to ask yourself when you're attempting any kind of Instagram strategy, whether it's focused on the visual like we're going to do today, or it's focused on a growth strategy, you need to know what your goal is. And for me, I see really three main types of goals on Instagram. And then there are some other outliers there that we'll talk about also. But you're either in it to make money directly off of Instagram. So these would be like lifestyle bloggers, people who have 250, 300,000 plus followers, and they get paid $500, $800, $2,000 from Nike to wear a pair of sneakers in one of their Instagram accounts. That's a perfectly valid way to make money on Instagram. Another one that's probably more common for most of you that are watching this is going to be lead generation. So your goal on Instagram is to find clients, to find customers, to find consumers of whatever the product is that you're putting out. So I'd say that those two are probably the most common ways to make money on Instagram, the most common goals that you have on Instagram. Of course, there's the people who use Instagram just personally as a platform to share their photos with friends and family, to have some engagement in a more visual media. We're not really going to be talking about those people because they're not business oriented. And my goal here is to help you make money. So we're going to talk about the goals that you can have for Instagram as far as a business is concerned. So the other main the goal that I see on Instagram is people who want to establish themselves as experts, or people who are in it for popularity. And I kind of group these two into the same, even though they're very different niches, because they're both more about how many people are following you and the kind of information that you're putting out to them in a way that's not the same as trying to make money. So I myself consider myself in this category. I am on Instagram to establish myself as an expert in the humanitarian field. I do this through my photography, but I don't really have a goal to make a lot of money from Instagram, although I do make some money from Instagram. That's not my primary reason for being there. And I also don't create a lot of lead generation from Instagram on my account, because my Instagram is geared towards the people who would want to follow the people that I work for. So my Instagram isn't really geared towards finding nonprofit clients to hire me as much as it is establishing myself as an expert in a way that my audience is valuable to the people who are hiring me. I hope that made sense. We'll talk about that a little more as we get into it. There are other ways that you can use Instagram. For example, one of my accounts for business is basically a mini blog. I don't really like to blog a lot, and so this has been hugely successful for me in wedding photography, where having a blog is very important. I just use my Instagram as a blog, and so we'll talk about that at the end too. There are pet accounts out there. I would kind of make that in the lifestyle category, but it also falls into the other category. I myself have an account for my dog, and the reason I put this in the other category is because I found that a lot of people who have pet accounts kind of take on this persona of their animal. And so I don't really want to say that it's a lifestyle account or a sponsorship account in all cases, although it is in some. It's kind of a unique thing on its own. If you want to talk more about that, feel free to send me an email later and we can discuss it. But it kind of falls into this other category for me as well. So the other thing that you need to know once you've established what your goal is on Instagram is you need to know what your brand is. And so what colors represent your brand? Do you have a logo? Who's your ideal client? That kind of thing. We're going to dive into some specifics about colors since this is a webinar about visual branding. I kind of want that to be where we set our focus right now. So you have all your main colors listed here. You know, yellow is associated with fresh, optimistic, happy brands. Red definitely is associated with love. It stands out, it's warm, it's inviting, all of that kind of stuff. Orange is a weird color to work with. I don't use it very often. I don't find that it fits most people, but if it is your thing, go ahead and use it by all means. It's a very creative, bold color, a very young and fun color. Green is a color that's often associated with nature, with freshness. Blue can be in that kind of nature area too if it's done the right way. But blue is a very calming, very soft. It's obviously associated with like public safety here in America. I'm not sure if that applies elsewhere in the world or not. I know like in Haiti, they have this lime green color that's associated with health, which we would never associate with health. It's kind of a weird color to be associated with health. But these are kind of assuming that most people listening are Americans or marketing to Americans. Purple is a color that's associated with extravagance, with high-end riches, with things that are kind of over the top and luxurious. And then I put black and white here. This is specifically for Instagram. Now, I don't think that black and white, this description of black and white applies to all instances of branding, but specifically on Instagram, black and white only accounts have this kind of artistic, aloof, pretentious, almost snotty in a good way vibe from them. So people who are on Instagram are visual consumers. This is the way they like to consume information, is visually. This is why they're on Instagram. And you have those like hipster artist kind of people who think that black and white is a more pure artistic form than color might be. And so in its own way on Instagram specifically, black and white plays differently than it might play on Facebook or elsewhere in the world. So now we've kind of talked about the two goals, what is your brand and what is your goal? Those are the things that you need to keep in mind when you're setting out to establish your visual identity on Instagram. We're going to go and kind of talk about some very specific examples. I'm going to talk you through what things I consider, and we're going to get into that now. So visuals on Instagram are processed way faster, than text is. And that's the case anywhere, but on Instagram specifically, if somebody doesn't like your picture, they're not going to take the time to read your caption. So the visual is definitely the most important. I like to say that the visual is for the people who don't follow you already, and the caption is for the people who do. So if you have people who are already interested in your brand and interested in what you're doing and the product or the information that you're giving out, they're going to read the captions on your photos because they want to know more. They've already gotten on board and said, yes, I'm a fan. People who aren't already following you or aren't already loyal followers of you, if the visual doesn't bring them in, if the visual doesn't make them want to know more, they're just going to scroll by it. They're not ever going to stop and read the caption. So visuals are very important, especially in building new followings on Instagram. So another thing you want to consider when you're talking about what visual content you put on Instagram, and this falls into the what is your brand category, is are you your target market? So for myself, I am not my target market. I am not looking for people who are like me on Instagram. I share some characteristics with my target market, but I'm not my target person for sure. If you're in like the health and fitness industry and your brand is about you and it's about what you bring to the table, then you definitely want to be the face of your Instagram. Have pictures of yourself with quotes. Have pictures of yourself having fun. Have pictures of yourself, just straight up selfies on your Instagram. That's great. If you're not your target market, you want to lay back on that some. You still want to have your voice and your personality on your Instagram, but you don't want to have your face all over Instagram if your face isn't going to resonate with your target market. So keep that in mind when you're deciding what images you want to have on Instagram, and we'll talk about that a little more as we go through. And the other thing that you really want to keep in mind is your first 6 images. So I'll show you as we're going through, we'll talk about this more in depth, but when somebody comes and clicks on your feed, your first 6 images are really your one and only impression on them. If those first 6 images aren't interesting and don't inspire them to scroll through your feed, none of the rest of your images matter. So you always want to be paying attention to the content that you find in those first 6 images. It needs to be representative of everything that your Instagram stands for. So if you do multiple things on your Instagram, maybe you share recipes, you share inspiring quotes, and you share photos of workouts that people can do. You want to make sure all 3 of those things are at any point in time shown in your first 6 images so that people know what they're signing up for, know what they connect to. That way you don't get people following you for the inspirational quotes, and then when you start posting pictures of recipes, they're like, oh, I didn't sign up for this, and then they unfollow you. You want people to have the whole picture. So I'm going to stop here and grab some water, and then we're going to dive into some very specific examples of how things work and how you can get everything designed. So be right back with you guys. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to dive into my Instagram. So on Instagram, I'm at Allison Mayer WSA, which people always ask. It stands for Witness Storyteller Artist. Like I said already, I am not my target market and I am not my brand. Even though the brand's in my name, I don't really consider myself to be like the face of my brand. My brand is about storytelling. My brand is about awareness. My brand is about the issues that the people I encounter face. My brand's not really about me. So, with that in mind, my goal on Instagram is to establish myself as an expert, to establish myself as somebody you come to when you want to know more information about how people in other parts of the world live, how people who face social justice issues live, how people who are struggling every day just to feed their families live. I want to be an expert on that. So that's how I've set myself up on Instagram. So I'm going to share my phone screen with you guys here. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that's represented in my visual content. All right. So hopefully you guys can see my screen here. Awesome. So the first thing that you're going to notice is how cohesive my content is. And that's very much on purpose. So I think you have to scroll down pretty far to find a picture of me. There's a picture of me here on the left with the like and share. And then there's a picture of me here again on the left. But there's very few, I don't know if you can see the cursor. Yeah, there's a picture of me there. And there's a picture of me here as well. And that's really it as far as selfies on my page. Okay, there's another one here. But you can see they're very few and far between because my brand's not about me. My brand's about telling the stories of all of these people. You can see the majority of my images have people in them. I do have a few landscape images thrown in. But overall, if you look, you see they're all the same color temperature. They're all the same subject matter. They all have a similar visual appeal to them. And that's something that's been really successful for me. Now, if you scroll back in my feed, you'll see that that wasn't always the case. So down here, sorry, you gotta scroll way back apparently. So I have a lot of like nature photos, a lot of photos from my life. I was sharing at that time a little more about kind of non-humanitarian related things that I was doing. And my engagements then were much lower. So like this photo, which I think is an awesome photo, but that's beside the point. You know, I've got 57 likes on that. It was a while ago, so yes, I had less likes on my account overall, but still a decent amount at that time. You can see not a lot of comments on those kinds of things either. If we go back and we scroll up here to where my content started getting more consistent, I started really reining back on the things that I was posting that weren't relevant to what I was doing. I started getting more likes and more consistency. So we can see here, not only do we have 590 likes, but we also have 50 comments. So I've seen personally the improvement that's been made by niching down into very specific things. Now, I love Instagram. I love to post. I love to share about everything. That's why, for example, I have an account specifically for my dog. Because then anytime I have a cute photo of my dog that I want to post, I don't have to worry about not being able to resist the urge to post it on my business account, even though it has nothing to do with what my business account is about. And same thing, excuse me, I also have a personal account. And as you'll see, this account has much more random photos. They don't really follow a path, or they're not about anything other than me. And I am not really setting myself up to be a lifestyle account. So you can see that my engagement on these kinds of accounts are much lower than on the accounts where I have very specific, very niched content. my engagement here is a lot higher. Sitting around at least 300 likes on pretty much everything now, which with my 10.5 thousand followers is above Instagram's average. And so I'm happy with that. If I were trying to do lead generation from my Instagram account, I might want my engagement to be a little higher, but that could be a whole other webinar in itself. So I'm going to check back on my slides here, and we'll move on and talk about a different account. All right. So like I said, with my account, I'm not my brand, so there weren't a lot of photos of me. And I'm also setting myself up to establish myself as an expert. So the photos that I was sharing, for example, don't have a lot of calls to action. I'm not constantly reminding people, please come visit my website, or please sign up for my email list, or please follow me on Facebook, or here's where you can get this free sample of my products, because I'm not out to generate leads from my Instagram account directly. So we're going to move on here. We're going to talk about Tracy. So I met with Tracy this week. We talked a little bit about her Instagram account, what her goals were, what she was trying to accomplish with Instagram. And then I set out to kind of help her create a visual platform, a more visual coherence in her Instagram feed. So you can see in her feed over here on the left, she was really posting like you would on any personal account, you know, some information about herself, about her life, things that she was doing every day. I've pulled out some photos over here on the right that I think really fit the message that she was trying to send. She lives in Hawaii, so her Instagram has amazing potential to be so beautiful. She's in health and fitness, and so she kind of wants to share that. She's a Beachbody coach, but she's also got a bachelor's degree in nutrition. She's very, very holistic in her approach. We're going to move over here. So what she sets out to do is she thinks that good health is an essential part of living a happy life. She wants to promote awesomeness and positivity. She wants to be encouraging. She wants to empower people to love themselves. Her target market is really women, specifically who are moms or want to be moms. Tracy is pregnant herself, and so that's kind of something that she can tap into to connect with people. So if we go back and we ask ourselves the questions that you want to consider when you're setting up your Instagram is, what is your brand? And are you your brand? So like, what is your goal? What is your brand? And are you your brand? Those were like our main questions. What is your goal? What is your brand? So Tracy's goal is lead generation. From her Instagram, she wants to gain more clients, which is probably going to be the case for most of you. So we're going to spend a lot of time kind of talking about how you can attract the right client visually. Tracy is her brand. She fits into the demographic of people that she's trying to attract. So it's really important for her to be the face of her brand. You know, she's got like some great cute selfies here. It's a good thing for her to have on her account, to keep as part of her account. But you also want to focus on things that are related to your brand that aren't necessarily about you. That's how you kind of separate yourself from being a personal account to a business account. So when people come to Tracy's account as it was, they're going to think this is Tracy's personal account. And even though her bio says, you know, that she's a Beachbody coach and that she's in the health and fitness industry, people don't really read your bio. It's important what you put there for when you have a call to action. But as far as reading your bio is one of the last things that people are going to do on Instagram. So it's important that you have a visual Instagram that says, hey, I'm an expert, I'm a business, I have some content that you're going to find interesting, not just here's a story of my life. So Tracy and I talked a lot about her business. I had her send me some examples of content that she loved. You'll see that over here on the right now. pictures of like nice, clean pictures of food. If you're going to include pictures of food on your Instagram, you need to do your research. You need to find tutorials and guides and look at a lot of food photos so that you really know what's a good food photo, because there are a lot of food photos on Instagram and people know when they don't have good lighting, when they're not set up well. And I'm speaking from personal experience, nothing is worse to me than bad food photography, because it just doesn't make food look good. And I don't know, it just has this weird effect on me. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So if you do want to post pictures of food on your Instagram, go out and do your research on that. I can definitely help you with that. Feel free to send me an email. Being a photographer, obviously, I have a lot of resources about that. That in itself could be a whole nother webinar, so we're not going to go into that anymore. I just want to stress that if you're putting pictures of food on your Instagram, they have got to be perfect. It's one of the few instances where I'll say that the quality of your picture really matters. Otherwise, if your picture is in focus and it's bright and it looks decent, then you're good to go. But food is the exception to that. If you're going to be sharing food photos, your food photos have got to be on point. So really dig into that if that's something you're interested. Anyway, back to Tracy here. These are the images she sent me of screen grabs from other people's Instagrams so that I could get an idea for like what kind of content she's attracted to, what kind of content speaks to her brand, that kind of thing. So from that, I went in and I started to develop some content for her using photos that she had already put on Instagram, as well as some stock photography and some different apps. And so this is kind of the initial screen that I developed. So you can see here, these selfies were already on her Instagram. I just took them from there. We have some stock photos in the middle here, some beautiful photos of Hawaii over here on the left. If you'll see, I want to point out these like little nuances to you guys, because I think they're the things that set good Instagrams apart from not so great Instagrams. Here we have, I created her this graphic that says, you know, welcome to my new Instagram. It has her handle down here on the bottom. That's the bottom middle. I'm not sure if you guys can see my cursor or not. The bottom middle, the orange one with the silhouette of the woman running. If you'll see, the one above it also has an orange kind of backdrop to the text. And then the one above it that says fitness tips for pregnancy also has an orange sunrise in there. Now that's a very intentional decision on my part. I'm going to switch over to Adobe Illustrator here for just a second, you guys. And I know most of you don't have access to Adobe Illustrator. You don't need Adobe Illustrator to do this. I just want to give you guys an idea how I go about doing it. All right, so we're in Adobe Illustrator here. I have this document set up that is a 4 down by 3 wide square grid. And the only thing I use this for is post planning, so that I know what my entire feed is going to look like. We're going to come back and dig into Tracy's feed just a little bit here in a second, but I want to show you, not that. I want to show you guys a already completed one. So this is for another client, the Curiouser Author Society. You can find them on Instagram at Curiouser Society. And this is a completed plan. So here we have 12 Instagram posts that have been laid out, and I very specifically have thought about when I post this photo of this girl in this red shirt on a Tuesday, what post came before it, what post is going to come after it, what post came 3 days ago, what post am I going to post in another 3 days, so that as people are scrolling through the feed for this Instagram, they have a very cohesive look, a very kind of like a magazine layout that specifically takes into consideration each and every post and how they fit together as a whole. And I think this is where a lot of Instagrams lack. So if we go back to Tracy's Instagram here, I was talking about the orange photos. This is not how I originally did these. I didn't do them in this particular order because I'm some kind of visual genius who can just picture this in my head. What I did is I created 9 square images, or 9 images that I thought Tracy would want to use on her Instagram. I brought them all into this document, and then I started moving them around until I found something, that looked good. And so my decision here, I knew that I want people to kind of focus into the middle. So I want people to see this. Welcome to my new Instagram. If this were my Instagram, I want people to see this. I want people to understand that this is the start of something new. If you scroll back through Tracy's feed and see all the other photos that she was posting that don't really fit into this content, you understand that, okay, now she's made a decision to focus more on this kind of content. So here we have the orange in the sunset and then the orange in this graphic, which kind of brings your eye down to this very, very stark kind of like capture your attention image. And that's what I wanted to do. We have in her first 6 images here, which would be these 2 selfies, the palm trees, the recipe photo, and up. We see a little bit of everything that she's about. She's about fitness. She's about health. She's about specifically connecting with moms. And so we have 5 ways to play with your kids or to work out with your kids and fitness tips for pregnancy. So anybody who's coming to her account for the first time is going to see these 6 images and understand who she is, what she does, that she's working with moms, with people who are pregnant, that you can expect to see some beautiful images from like the beach or Hawaii on her account. And so if you take these top 3 away, if these bottom 3 or these bottom 6 were the first 6 on her account, you would still see that. You would see that, she's into health and fitness and that she's into kids. So no matter which 6 are the first 6 from this, you see kind of how they fit together. All right, and so I'm going to go back to my slides here. So that's where we ended up on Tracy's account. What I want to do here is, so these posts where you see text over the images, for my own Instagram and for the Instagram of my clients, I use Adobe Illustrator because I know how to use that. But I know that's not a tool that a lot of people have at their disposal. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the apps that I do use as we're going through this. For Tracy's here, I use an app called Adobe Post, which is new and I just started using. Before that, I have been using an app called WordSwag. And I'm going to show you guys both of these real quick. But I just want to kind of talk about, as I'm going through, why I'm using Adobe Post now instead of WordSwag for the most part. So I'm going to pull it up on my phone and share my screen with you guys here in just a second. All right, so Adobe Post is this green kind of square thingy here. I don't know what you want to call that. Click on it, it'll open Adobe Post. And you can see you have these images that are kind of like starter images. There's not really like a ton to choose from on the first page, but there are some good ones. You can change the colors, you can change the font, you can change the image in the background. So when you're looking at these, really keep in mind kind of what your end goal is and how that fits in. So for someone like me, it's a little frustrating because you can't very precisely change everything. But for someone who doesn't really have a lot of graphic design experience, you can look at like this Beijing travel guide photo, for example, and you can say in your head, I want a square of text over my photo. And so then you would choose that one and then just make some changes, which I'm going to show you here. So We're going to go ahead and choose this one. Sorry, I just tried to click it on my computer. And then you're going to hit the remix button. And so the first thing I'm going to suggest you do is grab your photo. So you can upload a photo from your phone, whatever photo you might want to upload. I don't know. Let's say we wanted to use this like weird water photo that I have on my phone, sparkling water photo. Or you can go to search free photos, and this gives you access to Adobe's stock library, which is full of awesome and amazing images that you can use for any of these. So this is one reason I highly recommend it. I think they have a better quality stock library than WordSwag does. There's another reason, but that's one of the main ones. So if we're working on Tracy's here, so we're going to type in fitness because that's what she's about. And it's going to pull up all of these different images of fitness. Now, I highly recommend if you have a fitness account that you go out and have these photos taken. Have a friend take them with your iPhone if you don't have the budget to hire a professional. Obviously, as a photographer, I'm always going to recommend you get a professional whenever you can. But if you can't, then just go out and get them done. Like, don't obsess over the image quality. It's not food photography. We already talked about that. So just find a photo that works for you. Here in the stock, go out and get some of your own, because the more you can get your face in front of people and your personality in front of people, the better that's going to be for your business, specifically in this industry. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to choose this photo here. Tracy probably wouldn't use this photo because she's not a man. She would want to use a photo of a woman. And then we're going to change the text next. So you go ahead and you tap on it to highlight it, and then you double tap to change it. And I'm going to be like, stop the crunches, because who likes to do them? They're annoying, right? I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. So stop the crunches. And then you can see this like orange color is not working for me. This color selection is for the text specifically, so you can change that. But what you can do then is you hit this check mark down the bottom corner, and then you can click on palette and find the colors that kind of speak to you or speak to your brand. So for Tracy, for example, she had some like really bright colors. So we're going to start here. That might be too pink for Tracy. So you just tap the same one again and it stays within kind of that color scheme. This one's not really pulling out anything that I would want to use. So you can go and you can find a different color scheme. Maybe we'll do this one here. See what happens. This might be something, she had a lot of blues in there. She might want to choose something like this. So we're just going to go with this for now. I'm going to hit the check mark, and then you can hit the export button in the top, save the image to your camera roll, and then upload it to Instagram. You can also hit the export button and upload it to Instagram directly or share it to your computer. Obviously, I'm using an iPhone. If you have an Android, I don't even know if Adobe Post is available for Android. You might want to check that out. Somebody who has an Android, check that out and let me know. But this is one of my favorite apps. So before that, I was using this app called WordSwag, which is a very similar, it works a little bit differently. But you go in and you choose your photo, and you can choose from your camera roll, or you can search the different stock photos that are available, like we talked about. That's not a word, fitness. You just choose whatever photo you want to choose. You crop it to a square because we're on Instagram. And then you change your text. And you can go through here and click all these different kinds of text. So it's just a lot of like trial and error, figuring out what you want. Once you find something that you like, though, kind of stay with it. Yeah. So the main reason that I prefer Adobe Post to WordSwag, specifically for on Instagram, is because when you're done with WordSwag, that's it. It just saves a photo to your camera roll. You'll see save successfully your camera roll. You can't go back and edit that anymore. Whereas on Adobe Post, if you come here, you can go to this My Posts up in the top and see all of the ones that you've created before, and you can go back and edit them. So Tracy, for example, might like this graphic that I created here. If she's opening this up in Adobe Post, she can go back and edit it. And so last week, the article was 5 ways to work out with your kids. This week, the article that she's sharing might be 10 ways to do something. I don't know what it is. 10 ways to do something. And she can change this background image here. I'm just going to pick something out real quick. It can be a little slow at times. Wait for it to load. There we go. And so now she has a totally different graphic, but it still has consistency in the kind of layout of the image. So that's the main reason that I prefer Adobe Post over WordSwag these days, is because you can do that. So, all right, I'm going to go back and share my slides with you guys. So all of the graphics that you see here in this layout for Tracy have been made in Adobe Post. So now we're going to move on. We're going to talk about another account. I'm going to grab another drink of water here. Give me just a second. All right. I'm going to go back to Tracy's just for a second. You guys, these 2 ladies, Tracy and Erin, were awesome enough to let me kind of use them as guinea pigs and kind of tear apart their Instagram accounts and talk about their businesses here. So I'd love it if you guys could go and give them a quick shout out on Instagram, give them a follow. This is Tracy's Instagram here. And then I'm going to move on and we're going to talk about Erin. So Erin is a coach. Her goal for Instagram is also lead generation. Like I said, that's probably going to be the most common for you guys. She really has this philosophy that everything's connected, a really holistic approach. When I was talking to her about her business, she talked a lot about health and wellness and environment, trying new things, expanding, getting unstuck, kind of all of this stuff that merges together to kind of make our life more difficult than we want it to be, for us not to be in the place where we want to be. She's really about being herself and encouraging you to be yourself. Her business is very personalized. And so I really wanted to help her keep that authenticity in her Instagram account. I think there's a couple of different ways you can go in the coaching area with how you run your Instagram. So for Erin, I really want to keep it a lot about her and about her hobbies and about the things that she enjoys. I want to encourage her to do that because that's a huge part of her message. She considers herself to be her target client in the sense that she used to be who her target clients are now. Like, she used to be stuck and she's now progressed, but she also wants to relay to her clients that she's still growing, that she's not at like some finish line, it's a process and she's a little further in it, but she'd love to help you get started in it and move you through the process as well. So it's going to be important to keep her voice in her Instagram and not have it be completely a business, because in a coaching sense, you're doing a lot of one-on-one personal interaction with people. And so like, I encouraged Erin to really reach out and start interacting with people on Instagram. Her growth is going to be, this is just an extra tip because this has nothing to do with visual. Her growth is going to be a little slower than you might be able to attain otherwise, but it's going to be more prudent to finding her ideal person, because it is a relationship that involves a huge time commitment to begin with. So Erin had all of these great nature photos on her Instagram. She really loves using Instagram as an outlet for photography, which is a hobby for her. And so what I did here is I went through and I found some of her photos that I really liked, and I used those as like the backdrops for quotes, which I highly recommend you do if you have that ability or you have that interest to use your own photos. For her, I use Canva. It's Canva, which I'd never used before. I opened it specifically because she said she was interested in using it, so I wanted to use that to kind of create her images. I know a lot of people talk about it, so I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. Another thing that she had expressed interest in was having this interactive challenge on her Instagram where people could vote for different things for her to do, different things that were outside of her comfort zone. So I created a graphic for that. I don't know if this is something she really wants to do, record a music video, like a music cover, and put it on YouTube, but you kind of get the sense. The reason I chose this one is because now that Instagram is allowing vertical and horizontal images instead of just square images, you have this really unique opportunity. In somebody's Instagram feed, if you put a vertical or a horizontal image, Instagram takes a square out of the middle, and that's what ends up getting displayed. So if you see here on the left-hand side, you only see the square image, but on the right-hand side, you see this text above and below it. I really love using this kind of hidden feature on Instagram. So I'm going to go in here on my phone and pull up an example that I can show you. Give me just a second here. It's hard to do things quick enough when you're live. All right, let me switch over to my phone. All right, so as we're looking at this Instagram here, you can see a very consistent style. This is an Instagram account I manage for a client. Every time you see one of these pen points with like some words underneath of it, you see how you only see the square and the words. And then when you click on it, there's this text above and this text below that you didn't see. And so in this case, we're using the text above for the hashtag and the text below for a call to action. This account is about promoting a product that's not out yet and building up some hype for it. But if you see again down here, you have this image that stops at the words Curious or Author Society. And then when you open it up, you have this hidden, I call it hidden text above and this hidden text below. And so that's kind of what I did here for, sorry, if I can change my screen back. This is what I did here for Erin's Instagram. I think that this idea that she has is a great opportunity to kind of use that hidden space in a really unique way. So this would be like her first 6 as I designed it based on her photos. So all of these are photos that Erin has taken, which I love, except for the one of the microphone, because she didn't really have a photo that I felt fit with like the theme that I was creating for this. But you can see in the first 6, you don't see that hidden words above and below. So if somebody's coming to Erin's Instagram, they're really going to be drawn into this very colorful flower photo that she took with this great inspirational quote on it. But then I have this photo here where I put the hashtag unique experience because she was talking about how she was out in all of this snow and she's wearing a tank top. And one of the things that I really got from her when we were talking is how she wants people to go out and have those unique experiences and push themselves outside of their comfort zone and really live life. So I thought that was an important story for her to share and really draw attention to. Like these other 2 photos, these nature scenes here of the pine trees and down here of the water are great and beautiful, and they really speak to who Erin is and help keep this Instagram hers. But I really wanted to draw attention to how unique of an experience this photo was representing, that it wasn't just a nature photo. And then down here, I have a quote from one of her clients from her testimonial page. And so that's kind of what I set out for her, kind of how I envision her Instagram account proceeding. If I were to advise her on which photos to take and kind of how to make them look overall, this would be my suggestion. So now I'm going to pull up another account on my phone. Now this is my wedding business that I share with my friend Ashley and Allie. We use our Instagram in this case as a blog. So neither of us particularly enjoy blogging, but in the wedding industry, it's an extremely important part of attracting clients to be showing your recent work and to be telling a story. So Ashley and I are not our target client. She's married, I'm divorced. We're not a couple, despite what some people seem to think, because we do spend a lot of time together and because we have this name. So we don't really put a lot of ourselves on this Instagram, specifically because we want to keep it as a very coherent blog, you're going to see in a second that it's very stylized in a specific way that doesn't really allow for us to share a lot of personality on there, but for what we're using it for, that's fine. And so this use of Instagram visually falls into that other category that I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. You have the looking to make money on Instagram directly from sponsorships. You have the lead generation. You have the personal use. This kind of falls into that other category. So that's why I wanted to make sure to show you guys this one. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up on my phone here. Sorry, this takes just a second. I thought about doing screenshots, but I didn't think that would be as effective as actually showing you like the live stuff from my phone. So that's why it takes just a couple seconds. No big deal. Let's see here. So this is our feed, and like I said, we're using it as a blog. So as you scroll through here, you're going to see that if you've ever been to a photography blog, a wedding photography blog specifically, normally you have the title of the blog at the top that says, you know, Pam and Antoine's wedding. It tells you where it was, and then you have the pictures that follow. And I've chosen to lay this out kind of in a different way. So you can see here, we have these 8 photos of Pam and Antoine's wedding, and then the delineation in the middle of who they are. And if you were to click on this, it tells you kind of like where their wedding was and gives you the details, that kind of thing. And then you scroll down here, you can see, sorry, I forgot about the multi-touch that my phone now has. So if you scroll down here, you can see, then we move on to Rick and Steve's wedding, which is delineated by, you know, this new title. Liz and Jack's wedding, Hannah and Jamie's wedding, John and Deborah. I'm trying to keep with kind of a black and white, and then color, black and white. It got a little off here. I didn't have black and white images from Rick and Steve's wedding. That's why, or I didn't want to share black and white images from Pam and Antoine's wedding. But you get the picture of how I've stylized this account to serve a specific purpose. And I really wanted to show you guys this because, like I said in the beginning, despite all of the suggestions that I've given you and all of the ideas that I want you to keep in mind as you're stylizing your Instagram, it's really about your goal. And if you have a goal that you feel calls for something outside of the ordinary, then go for it. This might be a cool way. If you're a photographer, you might not want to, don't use this concept because I will come hunt you down. It's my concept. No, I'm just kidding. But you might want to, you know, every now and then put in like some inspirational quote or some fun fact or something in these boxes here where I've chosen to put people's names. It's totally up to you, you know, make it your own. But the key is to keep it consistent. So as you scroll through here, you see very consistent font, very consistent style, very consistent message that this Instagram is trying to give you. So yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to show you. Let me click back to my slides here. All right. Cool. So I want you to remember like these main things that we talked about. What is the goal of your Instagram? So is your goal to make money directly on Instagram? And if that's the case, then you really want to be you want to have especially high quality images that are going to be attracting your target market. So if it's a lifestyle account, which is the main way that you would make money directly on Instagram, you want to be posting pictures of yourself in interesting places, doing interesting things. If you want to use your Instagram as lead generation, like to sell your product, to build your email list, to drive traffic to your website, then you want to make sure that you're posting images that are consistent with those exterior brands. So you don't want to post images that are blue and yellow if somebody's going to go to your website and see a bunch of orange and red. You want to keep it consistent. You want people to see in your first 6 images on Instagram who your brand is, what your brand is, and then you don't want them to be surprised when they get to your website or your email list, wherever you're sending them. So you keep that in mind. If you want to establish yourself as an expert, like I did on my account with my 10.5 thousand followers, because it's very niche down. The smaller you niche it down, the more successful that you're going to be in establishing your expertise. Like I said, I don't know if I did or not, I have 7 Instagram accounts for myself. So I have one for a humanitarian business, one for my wedding business, one for my portrait business, one for my dog, one for my personal kind of interacting with friends, one for my personal photography, one that's of like old family photos, just a whole bunch of different things. The point is that each single one has a very, very specific niche that makes a few of them quite successful in establishing what kind of content people are going to get. That very niche down effect, like I have on my Instagram account, I'll pull that back up here so that you guys can have something interesting to look at while we talk here for just a couple of more minutes, and then I'll answer your questions if you guys have any. This really niched down thing that I have on my Instagram account. Sorry, I can't talk and switch screens. As a photographer on Instagram, my industry is a little different than a lot of you guys. As a photographer, being very, very niche down might bring me clients. But for the most part on Instagram, if you're very niche down, you're establishing an expertise more than you are bringing in clients. The expertise may help you get clients. The expertise may expose you to more people and you'll see your business grow. But you want to keep yourself in your Instagram as well if connecting with clients is important to your lead generation. So I am not really present in my Instagram at all, like we talked about. There are a few selfies of me, here and here, but even those, the captions aren't about me. They're not in a different style. They fit cohesively into my niche because I really want to be an expert in this one niche. And I have my Instagram account visually laid out to very clearly show what I'm about and not be distracting in any way. If you have a bigger picture like Tracy or like Erin, where you want to show who you are because you want clients to connect to that, as well as show what you do because you obviously want them to buy your service or your product, your Instagram's not going to be as precisely niched down as this Instagram that you're seeing right in front of you is. And that's fine. It's just whatever works for your business. But keep that in mind that you still do want to have that consistent kind of cohesive look about everything. So on my Instagram, just a quick review, we've got warm tones, a very consistent style. If we go here, I bring my slides back up. So if we go here to this Instagram that I created for Tracy, we have a really fun style. It's very clear that it's about health and fitness from this initial first 6 posts or first 9 posts. If you have the iPhone 6 Plus, you're going to see 9 posts, but I wouldn't count on all your clients having that. You get a very cohesive idea of what she's about. And then the same here when we created Erin's, a very different look, but still you get a cohesive idea who she is as well as what it is that she does. So if you guys have any questions after this is over, feel free to send me an email and let me know. Are there any specific, I'm going to go over the questions you guys have asked now. Are there any specific dimensions you recommend for using the extra space above and below the square image? That's a great question, Tony. So this image, let me pull it back up here in Adobe Illustrator. All right. All right, I believe that this image has, well, let me just check the sizes here for you so I can be specific. All right, I can't like think and do this at the same time for some reason. All right, hold on, technical difficulty. I'm getting there. Okay, so let me just explain it this way since I can't figure out what the exact sizes are because I just had like a senior moment or something where the ability to see the size in Adobe Illustrator just like fell out of my head. You can't put anything too tall or anything too wide into Instagram. So I would say as little space as you can get away with and still convey the message that you're trying. I know that this square is 2000 by 2000. When you display something on Instagram, it displays at 1080 by 1080. So I usually make my images a little bigger just so that they can press down nicely. I don't have any stretching issues on like larger screens, that kind of thing. So 2000 by 2000 for the square, which I'm guessing means that there's probably 50 to 75 above and below. The key to making this work is whatever you choose to, okay, so I'm just making sure I shared the screen. Yeah. Whatever you choose to, whatever size you choose to make, the square has to be exactly in the middle. So you have to have the same amount above or the same amount below. And otherwise it won't work. It won't display perfectly in the square. If any of you are listening, if you have access to Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop, go ahead and send me an email and I'll be happy to send this template over to you and you can use that for sure. So yeah, the main thing is keep the square and don't get crazy. Instagram won't let you have like a really long image. So you definitely couldn't put like another 500 at the top or 500 at the bottom. I'd say enough room for like a line or two of text. Just make sure it's the same amount above and the same amount below. Otherwise, it's not going to display as a square there. So awesome question, Tony. Thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. Oh, I didn't know if I selected it. That happened. So awesome. That's good to know. So if you guys are watching this in the replay and you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Let me know what your questions were. Or reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. I'm at Allison Mayer, WSA on everything. I'm going to put the slides back up here so that you guys can see my email again. There we go. Allie@AllisonMayer.com is how you can reach me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for checking out the replay if you are. The replay is just a link to It's an unpublished link to a YouTube video, so feel free to share it with your friends. I don't really plan on taking it down anytime soon, so it'll be available for a while. Send me an email if you guys have any questions. And thanks again to Erin. Go check her out, Erin Pauling, on Instagram, and also Tracy. Go check her out on Instagram too. They were brave enough to volunteer. Well, they were brave enough to sign up for this mission, and I really appreciate their help. Being able to kind of dig in and use them as an example for how to plan your Instagram. So it was great talking to you guys. I'm going to let you go now. My goal was to keep this under an hour. It ran just a little bit long, but hopefully the information was worth it to you guys. So I'm signing off now. It was great to talk to you. You guys have a wonderful weekend. And like I said, send me an email if you have any questions. Talk to you later.